guess you can gather from the start of the video that my return to the trails during the week was less than perfect. I'm a fairly newbie when it comes to trail running, and I've been pretty fortunate up until now not to have had too many spills out there on the trails. But the return last week, let's just say it didn't end well.
Believe it. I was just about to say when I finished how much I have missed running out on the trails, and the last 50 meters, over I go. A little bit of bark off there, a little bit down there as well. Tell you what, it's pretty rocky along this little track. Very fortunate not to come down on one of these sharp rocks, because whew, I was very lucky. I used to loathe running on the trails years ago, but I really enjoy it now, and I have missed it. Even with that fall, it's all part and parcel of it. I just wasn't paying enough attention to the ground in front of me. And I'm very fortunate here in Brisbane that we have these pockets of greenery and trails throughout the city. And I'm only 10 minutes from home here for this one. Not a huge area, but plenty of trails to sort of go backwards and forwards on, and plenty of elevation in here as well. I did 11k, just over an hour, so pretty good. Oh, my elbow's hurting a little bit, but I have missed the trails. Good to break it up and get off the bitumen and the footpaths. I think that's why I like the grass sessions so much, that it just sort of breaks up the monotony of running on the roads and running on the footpaths. So hope to keep hitting the trails every week from now on. And
it's my Sunday long run, and it drew quite a few comments on Strava this week. Just because of the makeup of the session. It was over 31 kilometres, and I broke it up into 4 by 5 kilometre splits at a faster pace with a 2 kilometre float recovery. It was a similar session that I did about 2.5 years ago before the Melbourne Marathon, where I ran my second sub 3 hour marathon, and that session was 5k on, 5k off, and that worked out at being like a 3 lots of 5k at a faster pace. But this one was a little bit different because I had those 4 reps with a 2k float, and really I did surprise myself. I went into it I've been feeling a little bit tired during the week, and I had reassessed how quickly I was going to do those 5k reps. Initially in my mind I thought I'll just do them at 4 minutes 30 minutes per kilometre. I'll put the mile splits up there, but as it turned out, the first one was quicker, and then the subsequent 3 after that were all quicker again, and the last one was done under 3 hour marathon pace. So I got to be really happy with that session, and pulled up really good. Did get a little tired towards the end of the last 5k rep, but it was quite windy, running into a headwind, but overall really happy with that. Just wish that we're in times with a little bit more certain. I guess would be great. We'd have events and races to look forward to and to plan towards, but that's not the case with the COVID-19. And that really brings me to another point, because since I did that speed block in April, the last 4 weeks have just really been, I guess you could say, bumbling my way along with no set plan or no set program for my running. I think it's time that I need to, get the focus back into what I'm actually doing. With no events or no races in the foreseeable future, I mentioned in last week's vlog that the Gold Coast Marathon had been cancelled in the first week in July. Also in the last week, the Sunshine Coast Marathon in August has been cancelled. The coronavirus is really decimating the Australian marathon landscape in 2020, but it still doesn't stop us from focusing on some goals. So what I'm going to do over the next couple of months now is, because I've got a MAF test next week, for regular viewers of the channel, you'll know that I do my MAF tests over 8k. I'm actually going to change that up from next week. I'm going to increase that to 12k, with my goal now over the next couple of months to increase that MAF test to 16k in July, and then in August I'll do a half marathon MAF test. Over the next 8 weeks, that's what I'm going to be focusing on. because there are no races, there are no events. I know there's lots of virtual running events out there, and I take my hats off to race organisers and event directors who have been able to keep everybody interested in their events through this period. But I just set myself some personal little goals and we'll see how we go. So how I'm going to attack it is that after next week's MAF test, I will do 3 weeks of just long MAF running. So I'll be increasing my mileage, hopefully up to that 130 to 140k a week. And then the week before I do the July MAF test, I'll throw in some faster pace running just to get a little speed back into the legs before I do that next MAF test, and then I'll repeat the process again in July leading into that half marathon. That's the plan for the next 2 months. Still waiting to hear whether the marathons in later in the year are on, like Sydney Marathon in September and Melbourne Marathon in October. The Gold Coast 50, which is a popular event held in December each year, open entries last week. They're pushing ahead, keeping their fingers crossed that that event will be able to be held. We'll see what happens with that one, but other than that, there are a few trail events that are going to go ahead, I believe, but under very strict restrictions, because we still have these restrictions on mass gatherings of a certain number of people. We're still here in Queensland sitting at 10. Early next month that increases to 20, and then after, I think July 10 or 11, it increases to 100. In these uncertain times, it's you just don't know from day to day what's going to happen. So that's about where we're at for running wise at the moment with the MAF. As I said, just been bumbling all over the place for the past month, and the past week's been no different. I've been like this with the MAF. Some days have been over, some days have been under. Time to put the blinkers on and focus and get back to doing what I've been doing for the past few months with the MAF, and heading towards that goal in August of running that half marathon at a MAF heart rate levels. Had a question during the week from one of the viewers, and Adam was asking about how I fuel my long runs. Before I actually get to that, I just really want to say thank you to everyone who commented last week on the topic of chasing PBs as we get older, and there's some great suggestions that came up in your comments that ranged from, yes, I'm still chasing PBs, to no, I'm never going to get back to where I was 20 years ago. But there were some great ideas about, keeping things interesting. One of the viewers, Joe, he just tries to beat last year's times that he ran. Another viewer mentioned set your own Strava segments and see if you can beat them, or try and beat other people's Strava segments, to trying new distances. And that's a great one. The suggestion was run a mile or run 100 mile, or a distance that you haven't done that you can keep chasing PBs in. Anyway, back to Adam's question. Adam, for my long runs, what I have been doing is just having a banana before I start, and during the run I'll just stop and have a water break. Depending on the length of the run, try to stop every sort of 5 to 8k for water. But everyone's different. I know some people like to have a full breakfast before they run. Other people like to fast before they run. Some have a coffee, and then during a run, people will take on gels and what other nutrition that they have. Previously, I have used gels for my long runs, and in previous marathons, I've also used gels. But since I've been doing the MAF, haven't used the gels. I think the last time I used a gel was for the Tarawera 50k Ultra Trail in February. Adam, I hope it's pretty basic what I use for a long run. Banana before and just water during, and it seems to work okay for me. Probably should just mention that after the long run too, I try to have, because I do the long runs of a morning, I try to have brekkie as soon as possible after the run, so that you can fuel the hungry body, just get that recovery under the way. Normally do a bit of light stretching as well after a long run, and then later in the day I might jump on the roller or just do a little bit more light stretching, just to make sure that I'm not getting any muscle soreness, and just helps with that recovery. It's basically like to keep moving after a long run, instead of just sitting around doing nothing, and just keep the blood pumping through the body, I guess. Just remember, guys, that this is something regular I'm doing with the questions, so if you've got a question, hit me up in the comments down below, and I'll pick out 1 or 2 each week to answer in the vlog. Alright guys, that's about it. I think this video is starting to get a little bit long. I might sign off now for this week. Plenty to talk about again in the next week and the coming weeks. Stay safe, everyone. Happy running, and I'll catch you in next week's vlog. Hooroo. So I'm back on the trails. First time I've been back in here for, oh, it must be close to 3 months now. Looking forward to my first run back on the trails. Oh, did it. Didn't think I'd be able to after so long away. Ooh, that's a tough little climb. First time I run all the way up to the top, I think. Feeling it now. Whew. Beautiful, isn't it? So nice and cool today.